Mara Liss, the glamorous stylist every elite in Kuala Lumpur envied, was secretly destroying the man who made her a queen, Sheikh Rami Al Fahad, a billionaire blinded by love. When she betrayed him with his three closest friends, Yasser Damon, Fail Nasser, and Ruben Kadim, their lust for power turned into a blood-soaked conspiracy that ended in murder. In a world built on luxury, lies, and loyalty, the truth didn't just break hearts, it buried them in the golden heart of Kuala Lumpur, where luxury towers pierced the skyline and the air smelled faintly of perfume and power. Sheikh Rami Al Fahad moved like a king among men. At 38, he had built an empire from nothing: luxury boutiques, private villas, exclusive clubs that only the wealthy could whisper about. His name appeared in every social magazine, his photos on every page that celebrated success. But those who truly knew him said his secret weapon wasn't his wealth. It was the woman who dressed him, advised him, and followed him like a shadow. Her name was Mara Liss. Mara had arrived in Malaysia 5 years earlier, a young stylist from the Philippines with impeccable taste and an aura of mystery. She had a gift for transformation, turning anyone she touched into something rare and refined. When Sheikh Rami met her at a high-profile event, she was styling a celebrity guest. Within weeks, she became part of his inner world, trusted with his image, his wardrobe, and eventually his heart. She was beautiful in a quiet, magnetic way, with dark eyes that seemed to hold secrets she never spoke. To everyone else, she was simply his stylist. But those who watched closely could sense something more, a bond that crossed the lines of professionalism. Rami's circle of friends, Yasser Damon, Fail Nasser, and Ruben Kadim, were fixtures in his world. They were men who had grown with him through business ventures, parties, and shared indulgences. Yasser was the charmer, smooth and confident, known for his connections in the luxury car scene. Fail, quieter and analytical, managed Rami's investments, handling vast sums of money with the precision of a surgeon. Ruben, the youngest of them, was Rami's trusted driver and logistics man, a loyal companion who followed orders without question. To the outside world, they appeared inseparable, brothers bound by success. But under the polished surface, cracks were forming. Each of them had their own ambitions, their own grudges, and their own envy of Rami's success. They watched as he traveled the world, showered Mara with gifts, and moved through life with an effortless power none of them could match. Mara became a symbol of everything they wanted: wealth, beauty, and influence. And when she began to receive special treatment, flying first class while they waited in business, attending private meetings meant only for Rami, they noticed. The jealousy started as whispers, small remarks passed between drinks, and soon became silent resentment. Mara herself felt it. She saw the way Yazir's eyes lingered too long when she entered a room, how Fail tried to impress her with quiet intelligence, and how Ruben's loyalty turned into fascination. She had power over them, and she knew it. Rami, blind in his devotion, failed to notice the tension growing between the people closest to him. He thought of himself as untouchable, wrapped in luxury and loyalty, unaware that his world was slowly being reshaped by desire and greed. As weeks turned into months, Mara's role deepened. She began handling private appointments, managing events, even giving opinions on new investments. She was everywhere. Rami was on yachts, in penthouses, at silent auctions. To outsiders, she was indispensable. To his friends, she was an intruder who had infiltrated their empire. They felt replaced, irrelevant, and slowly began to resent the man who had once been their leader. Rumors began to circulate in the city's elite circles. Whispers that Rami's stylist was more than just an employee, that she had access to his accounts, that she made decisions behind his back. Rami ignored them all. His confidence in Mara was absolute, and that blind faith would become the root of his downfall. In that glittering world of luxury, the smallest secrets had the power to destroy everything. And in the silence of Rami's private villa, a storm was beginning to gather, one that would tear apart the bond between friends, reveal the darkness in love, and end with the kind of betrayal no one could have imagined. What began as trust would soon turn into treachery, and the lives built on wealth and loyalty would crumble under the weight of deceit. Mara Liss had mastered the art of pretending. By day, she was the picture of professionalism. arranging Sheikh Rami's wardrobe for his public appearances, preparing fabrics imported from Paris, and coordinating luxury brands that relied on his influence. But behind her calm smile and polished image, something inside her was shifting. The more she saw of his wealth and the control he exercised over every part of her life, the more she began to resent him. What started as admiration was turning into quiet bitterness. Rami gave her everything: cars, jewelry, a private apartment, but he also watched every step she took. Every decision she made was under his shadow. Her resentment needed an outlet, and it came in the form of Rami's trusted circle. Yasser Damon was the first to notice the cracks. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the frustration behind her polite laughter. He approached her under the guise of friendship, offering understanding and sympathy. It was all Mara needed to feel noticed again. Soon, messages were exchanged in secret. Yasser flattered her, told her she deserved more than to be treated like someone's possession. Mara, starved for validation, began to believe him. Their connection sparked something dangerous. Yasser was ambitious but reckless. He wanted Rami's influence, his money, and the respect that came with his name. Through Mara, he saw a shortcut to power. He began asking questions about Rami's finances, the private accounts she managed, the investments she handled. At first, she dismissed it as curiosity, but then the temptation became stronger. She started sharing small details, harmless things at first. The amounts in his accounts, the names of his business partners, the passwords to his private storage vaults. Every secret she revealed made her feel more powerful and more distant from the man who trusted her most. Fail Nasser entered the picture soon after. Quiet, logical, and cautious, he suspected that something was off between Mara and Yasser. But instead of confronting them, he joined them. He saw opportunity in their alliance. To him, it wasn't about lust, it was about survival. Rami had recently questioned Fail's management of his investments, hinting that his position might be replaced. Helping Mara and Yasser meant securing his own future. Together, they formed a silent pact, an unspoken agreement to use Rami's secrets for their benefit. Reuben Kadim, loyal yet desperate to prove his worth, became the final piece of the puzzle. Mara manipulated him differently through sympathy. She told him she feared Rami, that he was planning to discard everyone once his new European partners arrived. Reuben, always protective of her, promised to watch out for her. In reality, he was being used as their messenger, running errands that slowly laid the groundwork for what would become a deadly conspiracy. Over the next few months, the four of them built a web of deceit. Bank transactions were rerouted. Confidential contracts were copied. Files disappeared from Rami's office only to reappear altered. The empire he had built so carefully was being eaten from within, piece by piece, by the very people he trusted. Mara was the architect of it all, guiding them with precision, keeping her control through charm and fear. Yet despite her growing power, a part of her felt trapped. She had gone too far to stop. Every secret she shared tied her closer to the others, and every lie she told made the truth harder to hide. When she looked at Rami now, she saw not the man who had lifted her into luxury, but the obstacle standing between her and freedom. Her nights were restless, haunted by guilt she refused to admit. The final turn came when Yasser suggested something that made even Mara hesitate. He spoke of a clean end, a way to take everything once and for all. The plan wasn't just about theft anymore, it was about elimination. If Rami were gone, there would be no evidence, no witness, and no one left to stop them. Mara didn't answer immediately, but deep down, she knew it was inevitable. The deception had reached a point where betrayal alone wasn't enough. The only way to secure her future was to destroy the man who had once trusted her, more than anyone else in the world. The night of May 6th arrived with a strange stillness, the kind that makes the air feel too heavy to breathe. The city lights of Kuala Lumpur glowed in the distance, as Sheikh Rami's car rolled up to his private villa in Selangor. He had just returned from a charity gala, exhausted but satisfied, unaware that his home, his sanctuary, was about to become the scene of his death. Inside, the villa was silent except for soft music playing from hidden speakers. The air smelled faintly of roses and expensive cologne. On the dining table, a candlelit dinner waited for him, perfectly arranged. Just as Mara had promised earlier that day, Mara Alice moved gracefully through the villa, dressed elegantly but trembling beneath the surface. Everything had been planned to perfection: the meal, the lighting, the timing. She told herself it was the last act she needed to perform. Rami would eat, drink, fall unconscious, and the rest would be handled by Yasser and Fail, who were waiting nearby. The poison Fail had procured would make the death look like an overdose. The plan was simple, silent, and efficient, but no amount of planning could predict how violently it would all unravel. Yasser and Fail entered through the back door minutes after Rami's arrival. They wore gloves and moved with nervous precision, their eyes darting toward every shadow. Reuben waited in the car parked outside, engine running, ready to drive them away once it was done. Inside, Rami poured himself a glass of wine, his posture calm, unaware of what was happening behind him. Mara stood nearby, pretending to fix the flowers, but her heartbeat was loud in her ears. The poisoned wine sat in a second glass on the table, waiting for the right moment. Rami noticed her shaking hand as she offered the drink. His instincts, honed from years of business rivalries and deceit, sensed something was wrong. He set the glass down and asked a quiet question, one that froze Mara in place. Before she could react, Yasser stepped forward from behind the curtain, startling both of them. What was meant to be a silent execution erupted into chaos. Rami spun around in shock, realizing he had been betrayed. He reached for his phone, but Fail lunged at him. In the struggle, the glass of poisoned wine shattered, spilling dark liquid across the marble floor. The sound of the struggle echoed through the villa. Mara screamed for them to stop, but it was too late. Fail, desperate to finish what they started, grabbed a heavy metal sculpture from a side table, a decorative piece shaped like a falcon, and swung it. The first blow knocked Rami to his knees. The second ended it. The room went silent, broken only by the sound of Mara's ragged breathing. The man who had given her everything lay motionless on the floor, his blood mixing with the spilled wine. For a moment, none of them moved. The weight of what they had done settled like a thick fog. Yazir's hands trembled as he checked for a pulse. There was none. Panic took over. Fail muttered about fingerprints and cameras. Mara couldn't look at the body. Her mind was blank except for one thought: this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She had imagined it as a clean escape, not a bloody disaster. They wrapped the body in a silk bedsheet and dragged it through the hallway toward the garage. Every movement felt like a nightmare. Reuben opened the back of Rami's SUV as they loaded the body inside. His face pale under the streetlight. He didn't ask questions. He only drove. The plan was now to burn the car in an isolated area outside the city, erasing any evidence of what had happened. As they disappeared into the night, the villa stood silent again, the candles still burning, the dinner untouched. The rain began to fall just before dawn, washing away the footprints on the driveway, but not the trail of destruction left behind. Inside the villa, security cameras continued to record, their small red lights blinking in the dark, capturing everything that would one day expose them all. The early morning sky over Rawang was a dull gray when the flames from Sheikh Rami's burning SUV lit up the abandoned construction site. The four conspirators stood a distance away, watching the fire devour the evidence. The thick black smoke twisted upward, blending into the fog. The air was heavy with the scent of gasoline and fear. When the flames began to fade, they turned away without a word. It was over, or so they thought. They believed that the fire would erase everything: the body, the weapon, the traces of their betrayal. But in reality, it was the beginning of their undoing. Mara Alice tried to stay calm, convincing herself that everything had gone according to plan. Back in her apartment, she scrubbed her hands until her skin turned raw, as if she could wash away the guilt. She told herself she had done what she needed to survive, that Rami's death was inevitable. But the silence of her penthouse felt suffocating. His clothes were still hanging neatly in her closet, his watch still lying on her dresser. The man she had spent years manipulating was now gone, and all she felt was emptiness. Meanwhile, Yasser and Fail met secretly to divide the stolen money. The accounts Mara had accessed now belonged to them, but trust between the group had already begun to erode. Yasser wanted to disappear quickly with his share. Fail insisted on waiting until the investigation cooled down. Reuben, the youngest and weakest link, grew increasingly paranoid. He couldn't sleep, haunted by the sight of Rami's blood on the marble floor. He began drinking heavily and talking too much. That was the first sign of cracks forming in their fragile alliance. The news of the burning car broke 2 days later. Police discovered the remains of a body inside, charred beyond recognition. At first, investigators believed it was a tragic accident, one of many luxury cars lost to reckless driving. But an item survived the fire, small but significant, a silver bracelet, half melted, with the initials RAF engraved inside. The discovery shifted the case instantly. The body was no longer unidentified, it was Sheikh Rami Al Fahad. His death was now classified as suspicious. Detectives began tracing his last known movements. Security footage from the villa showed him arriving home after the gala, but never leaving again. The same footage captured Mara's car parked in the driveway hours before the estimated time of death. When officers questioned her, she appeared calm and composed, insisting that she had left before midnight. Her confidence impressed them at first, but the inconsistencies in her story began to pile up. Behind the scenes, Fail tried to cover their tracks. He deleted emails, wiped financial records, and transferred money through offshore accounts. Yasser, however, couldn't resist flaunting his new wealth. He was spotted at luxury bars in Bangkok, spending carelessly, and his name soon appeared on the radar of Malaysian authorities. Ruben panicked the moment he heard police were making progress. He checked into a hotel in Penang, hoping to lay low, but he never checked out alive. His body was found 2 days later, slumped on the bed with an empty bottle beside him. The cause of death was ruled as an overdose, though investigators suspected otherwise. The group that had once shared a single goal was now falling apart. Fail, realizing the circle was tightening, tried to flee through the Thai border using a fake passport. He was caught after attempting to bribe an immigration officer, and his arrest opened the floodgates. Under pressure, he gave up partial details about the conspiracy enough to implicate Mara without fully confessing to murder. When the police raided Mara's penthouse, they found hidden drives containing Rami's financial data, along with luxury items purchased under his name. Her composure broke for the first time. As officers searched her home, she watched silently, knowing her carefully built world was collapsing. Every secret she thought she had buried was being uncovered piece by piece. The media erupted with headlines about the scandal, the glamorous stylist, the secret affair, and the murder of one of Malaysia's most influential men. Public fascination turned to outrage. What had begun as a perfect crime was now unraveling into a tangled web of greed, deceit, and betrayal. The fire that was supposed to erase the evidence had instead illuminated every dark corner of their plan. And for Mara Alice, the woman who once believed she controlled everything, the flames were now coming for her. The case that had begun with whispers of scandal soon became a national obsession. Every newspaper in Malaysia carried Sheikh Rami Al Fahad's face on the front page. His murder wasn't just a story of betrayal, it was a tale of luxury, love, and greed gone rotten. The investigation, once slow and uncertain, had gained momentum after Fail Nasser's arrest. With every passing day, the truth came closer to the surface, dragging Mara Alice's perfect Fawade down with it. For weeks, Mara maintained her innocence. She told investigators that Rami had enemies in business, that his death was part of a larger conspiracy. She denied knowing anything about the stolen funds or the missing jewelry. But the evidence spoke louder than her polished lies. Forensic experts matched her fingerprints to the wine bottle that contained traces of sedatives. Security footage confirmed her presence at the villa hours after she claimed to have left. Most damning of all, encrypted files on her laptop revealed her communications with Yasser, Fail, and Ruben, each message a thread that tied her to the murder. Under the weight of mounting proof, Fail finally broke. In a confession that stunned even the investigators, he admitted that the plan to kill Rami was born out of Mara's manipulation. He described how she had turned each of them against their friend, feeding them promises of wealth and freedom. According to him, she was the mastermind, the one who chose the poison, who arranged the timing, who convinced them that it was the only way to secure their future. His confession painted her not as a victim, but as a cold strategist who had orchestrated every move. Still, one piece of the puzzle was missing: Yasser Damon. After Ruben's mysterious death and Fail's arrest, Yasser had vanished completely. Some believed he had fled to another country. With the last of the stolen money, others suspected he had been silenced. Months later, a group of fishermen made a grim discovery in a mangrove swamp north of Penang: a decomposed body, bound with rope, identified through dental records as Yasser. The cause of death was determined to be drowning, but the bindings suggested something far darker. Investigators quietly concluded that Mara might have arranged his death through criminal contacts, removing the final witness, who could testify against her. The revelation destroyed any remaining sympathy for her. During her trial, the courtroom overflowed with reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers eager to witness the downfall of the woman who had seduced and betrayed one of Malaysia's most powerful men. The prosecution presented her as a woman consumed by greed, whose ambition had no limits. They showed the jury her lavish purchases made after the murder, the hidden accounts under false names, and a timeline that linked her directly to every stage of the crime. Mara sat expressionless throughout the proceedings. Her once elegant appearance had faded, her designer suits replaced with plain prison clothes. Yet her cold composure unnerved everyone in the courtroom. When the verdict was finally read, she didn't flinch. She was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The empire she had built on deceit crumbled in an instant. Sheikh Rami's family, who had returned to Dubai after his funeral, refused to make public statements. His business holdings were sold off, his villa sealed indefinitely by the authorities. The property, once filled with laughter, parties, and music, now stood silent, its walls scarred by what had happened there. Locals called it cursed, a monument to betrayal hidden behind luxury gates. In prison, Mara Alice became a ghost of her former self. The woman who once dressed the rich and powerful now spent her days in isolation, her beauty and charm meaningless behind steel bars. She never spoke about what truly happened that night, or whether she had killed Yasser herself. The truth remained locked inside her, another secret she would carry to her grave. The case of Sheikh Rami Al Fahad became a warning whispered across Kuala Lumpur's elite circles. It reminded them that even in a world of wealth and glamour, greed could turn love into murder. Beneath the glittering surface of high society, darkness had taken root, and one woman's hunger for power had consumed them all. The tragedy lingered long after the headlines faded, haunting every empty hall where luxury once promised safety. Asterisk.